What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko podcast. I am DK Wrestler.
And I am MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, not only is it our first podcast of 2024, and not only does today actually would mark our 5-year anniversary of the channel, but today is a fandom-related podcast. It is another WWE podcast, and it's none other than the era that I started watching wrestling in. It's none other than Ruthless Aggression. Had to say it like that. 2002 to 2008. A lot went down here. I mean, a huge roster of superstars after the purchase of WCW, and they had to divide into two with Raw and SmackDown. So much went on with the talent. I mean, you had so many talent from different eras. But MD, what are your thoughts on the Ruthless Aggression era before we get into talking about certain stars of the era?
Yeah, I mean, we both grew up with the Ruthless Aggression era, and it was awesome. I loved it. I definitely started watching wrestling during the Ruthless Aggression era, of course. I did watch a little bit of the Attitude era, but I was too young that I didn't really care enough. I kind of just loved Stone Cold. So the Ruthless Aggression era is awesome. It has some of my favorite WWE superstars of all time in this era. A lot of really cool storylines happened. And of course, my favorite wrestler of all time being Edge, of course, really started to succeed in his career. Of course, in the Attitude Era, he did have a good like tag run going with Christian and all that, but he really started his singular career in the Ruthless Aggression Era.
So how this podcast obviously is going to go, if you've listened to our previous WWE related podcast, we're going to be talking about certain stars of that era, give a little bit of stats, talk about our favorite matches with them, and of course kind of go with an overview of the Funko Pops involved with those superstars. There's no other way to start this off by not only kicking off with like the biggest star of the Ruthless Aggression era, but the one that actually said the word Ruthless Aggression to kick this off. That's none other than John Cena. West Newbury, Massachusetts, 250 pounds, 13-time WWE champion, 3-time World Heavyweight champion, 5-time United States champion, 2-time tag team champion, once with The Miz and once with David Otunga, and a 2-time world tag team champion, once with Batista and once with Shawn Michaels, the winner of the 2008 and 2013 Royal Rumble, and was the winner of the 2012 Money in the Bank ladder match for specifically the WWE Championship contract.
John Cena is awesome. I know that a lot of people do hate him, but it's hard to say that he's not one of the best of all time. Of course, maybe you don't like his moveset, but his mic work is unbelievable. And the way that his character developed from being, let's say, like prototype John Cena into the Chain Gang, then you got Super Cena, who just seems to not lose matches. Matches that stick out to me, it's a tough one because John Cena has feuded with literally everyone in the Ruthless Aggression era, pretty much. I mean, Batista, Orton, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, Big Show, just everybody he's really feuded with. But a couple matches that definitely stick out to me. I definitely liked his feud with Undertaker back in, I think it would have been 2003, probably. You probably know the date and probably what pay-per-view it was at. But I remember leading up to it, John Cena cut a promo where he was like in the graveyard and he's like taking a leak on Undertaker's tombstone. Edge versus John Cena in the ladder match for the WWE Championship, where Edge ends up taking a attitude adjustment off of the ladder through a couple of tables, and that's the way the match ends. That's probably one of my favorite John Cena matches, but I mean, there's so many good ones.
All right, so John Cena matches I listed down. The first one I listed down, of course, had to be the match with JBL at WrestleMania 21. It was when he won the WWE Championship for the first time. And then actually, one of the matches you discussed about I had to write down was versus Edge at Unforgiven 2006. TLC match, and it happened in Toronto, Canada. There's also his match with Shawn Michaels, more specifically, and I actually brought this up, I believe, in our New Generation podcast. It was an episode of Monday Night Raw in the UK. I thought I'd put over the Royal Rumble 2008 because that's when John Cena came back earlier than expected and won the damn thing. More, I guess, modern day match I'd put is his match with CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011. Of course, that whole storyline, Punk's leaving Chicago with the title, and then the match with The Rock at WrestleMania 28 at the time when it was once in a lifetime instead of, 1 year later for the WWE title. And then I guess I thought I'd put over, and I couldn't decide which match I wanted to put, so I put both, is the SummerSlam 2016 and Royal Rumble 2017 matches with AJ Styles. There's so many John Cena matches I can go through, but of course, a lot of superstars to talk about. And speaking of a lot of things, John Cena has tons of Funko Pops in the lineup. Of course, there's the very first one that actually has, at the time, the scratch logo before they reverted to the current logo. WWE shop, one that's wearing the light blue outfit, which I believe is one of the most expensive WWE pops. There's John Cena with the green outfit, that's also a WWE shop exclusive. There's the John Cena with the green and orange attire, or as I like to call it, the Gatorade attire. They even went as far as making an invisible John Cena to mimic the whole "you can't see me" thing, Amazon exclusive. And then there's the Dr. Thugonomics John Cena, number 76 in the lineup. Number 136 is one of the newer pops, actually. It was in the, not the most recent wave, but the wave before that. It's the Never Give Up John Cena. And then there is the in-ring moments involving the match I actually talked about, John Cena and The Rock at WrestleMania 28. So it was really cool that they made that into an in-ring moments.
Yeah, the John Cena pops are pretty cool. And of course, John Cena has worn so many different colors. And of course, being with like the Dr. Thugonomics and Super Cena, there's definitely a lot of different things that they could do for John Cena. One of the standout pops for me has got to be the Amazon exclusive, because that's hilarious to give us a fully clear pop, because you guys know you can't see him.
All right, so the next superstar we had to talk about, I guess the original person that was supposed to be the face of WWE before he left. That's, of course, the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. Minneapolis, Minnesota, 286 pounds, 7-time WWE champion, 3-time Universal champion, winner of the 2002 King of the Ring, a 2-time Royal Rumble winner, once in 2003 and the other in 2022, and then the winner of the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2019. And oh my God, I could say a lot of great things about Brock Lesnar. I know people like to crap on him nowadays because of his limited move set and all that, but I mean, Brock is Brock.
Yeah, like there's been times where I absolutely hated Brock Lesnar, and there's been times where I'm like, wow, Brock Lesnar is the man. He's awesome. It's hard to hate on him. I mean, he's a beast, no pun intended, but he really is. He's quite the specimen. He's huge, he's powerful, and it makes sense that WWE wanted him to be the face of the company. Of course, they've given him a ton of accolades over the years. So match wise, I mean, the first one you got to talk about is the streak with Taker. I can't believe Brock beat the streak still to this day. And this was a long time ago at this point. Kind of makes sense now that I look back at it. Brock Lesnar and Big Show matches, insane, of course, with like the ring breaking. You got to mention that. Of course, there was, what was it? Brock versus Eddie Guerrero, I think it was. And he does the shooting star press and absolutely botches the hell out of it. Of course, you got to talk about just how he's changed his character in the last couple of years with this whole Saskatchewan meat eating Brock Lesnar with a ponytail and cowboy attire, which is something that you never thought you'd see from Brock Lesnar, but that's who he is.
As terms to matches with Brock Lesnar, of course, I can name a lot of Brock Lesnar matches, but some of my favorites I've listed down here. First off is, once again, if we're going down the route of like the first title win, him versus The Rock at SummerSlam 2002. Brock Lesnar won the WWE Championship for the first time. He was marked the youngest champion, technically still the youngest WWE champion, because Randy Orton won the World Heavyweight Champion to become the youngest world champion of all time. Then I wrote down Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar from No Mercy 2002 inside Hell in a Cell versus Kurt Angle, more specifically from SmackDown in 2003, where they had an Iron Man match and is regarded as Brock Lesnar's greatest match he's ever had, 60-minute Iron Man match. Some people would also mark down, and I should also mention this because you got the superstars mixed up, it was Kurt Angle that he had that match at WrestleMania 19 where Brock does the shooting star press and completely botches it. But I mean, at the same time, if Kurt Angle was a little bit closer, he definitely would have hit that. But nonetheless, as you go more towards current matches, I have to put down Brock versus CM Punk from SummerSlam 2013. Thought that was great storyline wise. And then what I still think to this day is Brock Lesnar's best match since coming back in 2012 is his match versus AJ Styles at Survivor Series 2017. They went like 20 minutes, and there's just so much going on as terms to giving so much offense to AJ Styles and making you believe that AJ Styles could possibly beat Brock Lesnar. But nonetheless, those are some of my favorite Brock Lesnar matches. There could be more listed down, but I just wanted to keep it that short. But for Funko Pops, Brock technically only has 3 Funko Pops at the moment. First off is the very first one, number 13. That was a Walmart exclusive where he's wearing the black and red shorts when he first came back. Then number 110 in the lineup, Amazon exclusive Brock Lesnar farmer attire, I guess I'll call it, with the ponytail. And then it's the 2-pack of the match that MD talked about with Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker to commemorate WrestleMania 30, where Brock did end the streak. Should he have ended the streak? I don't think he needed it, but it definitely made sense for Brock to be the guy to end the streak. But nonetheless, I do think that there is room for more Brock Lesnar pops in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, 3 is a good number to have, but I do think that they could do more. I mean, there's some different attires that you definitely want to see. There's different, maybe like in-ring moments that I would like to see. But besides that, I think that the 3 Lesnar pops that we do have are pretty dang good.
All right, next superstar, arguably my favorite superstar of the Ruthless Aggression era because he is one of my favorite superstars of all time. That is the man of many nicknames, the Apex Predator, the Viper, the Legend Killer, Randy Orton, St. Louis, Missouri, 245 pounds, 10-time WWE champion, 4-time World Heavyweight champion, WWE Intercontinental champion, United States champion, a World Tag Team champion with Edge, Raw Tag Team Champion with Matt Riddle, SmackDown Tag Team Champion with Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper in one reign, but it was the Freebird rule in the Wyatt family. Winner of the 2009 and 2017 Royal Rumble, 17th Triple Crown Champion, 10th Grand Slam Champion, and even though this isn't listed, at some point he will be in the WWE Hall of Fame because Randy Orton is an absolute GOAT, probably in one of my personal Mount Rushmore of best superstars of all time.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that he is one of the best of all time. I believe he also has a stat of like the most pay-per-view appearances of any superstar, which is pretty damn crazy to think about. It doesn't seem like anything too crazy, but when you think of the career that he's had, you really kind of start thinking like, yeah, that's a lot of matches at pay-per-views. And Randy Orton is awesome, of course. Loved his time when he was tag teamed with my favorite wrestler of all time, Edge. I loved the name. Rated RKO was just hilarious, awesome, good wordplay for a tag team. But match-wise and feud-wise, I'm kind of blanking on actual matches, but bald Randy Orton was so different. A crazy heel, one of the craziest heels. A lot of people agree, like ever, like Randy Orton in 2009 was probably, he was just menacing and he introduced the punt into his moveset, and that was a pretty devastating looking kick to the face, I suppose.
I had to calm myself down on this because I could probably do a whole podcast talking about Randy Orton matches and just Randy Orton in general. The first one I always mention because it is in my like top 10 favorite matches, maybe even shortening down to top 5. Him versus Cactus Jack at Backlash 2004 for the Intercontinental Champion, which we did discuss about this on the Attitude Era podcast a few months ago when talking about Mick Foley. The match that literally made Randy Orton to the superstar that he is today. So you have to mention that. Throughout the entire year of 2005, he basically feuded with The Undertaker, but you definitely got to mention about WrestleMania 21. Basically, the match that kind of created the phrase RKO from out of nowhere because he reversed the chokeslam into the RKO. Randy Orton's greatest feud, most likely, is probably John Cena. They've had tons of matches together, and so trying to think of one, I actually always mix the pay-per-views because I don't remember which one it is. I believe it is Breaking Point 2009. They had an I Quit match against each other, and yeah, this was bald Randy Orton, a fucking menace to society, easily one of the greatest heels in WWE history. And then I also put down as more of a kind of modern match, even though this was over 10 years ago at this point. Crazy even to say that. Him versus Christian at SummerSlam 2011 for the World Heavyweight title. Him, Batista, and Daniel Bryan from WrestleMania 30. But just know that there are a ton more matches that I can list down. But like I mentioned, we got quite a bit of superstars to go through as terms to the Ruthless Aggression era. And Randy Orton, surprisingly, as big of a superstar as he is, he only has 2 Funko Pops in the lineup. There's the original one, number 60, where he's actually doing his signature pose. And then they have a more current version when he was a part of RK Bro with Matt Riddle, in which they did do a Riddle Funko Pop. And that's the only ones.
Yeah, it is really surprising that there's only 2 pops. I mean, there's so many different looks for Randy Orton over the years with like when he was super young. There's like so many different colors of trunks. There's green trunks, the orange trunks, blue trunks. There's so many different ones they could do. And then of course, like they could do bald Orton, which would be really cool. And there's just so many different things that they could do. They could put t-shirts on him, give him a legacy t-shirt or whatever. So 2 is definitely not enough. They definitely need to make more Randy Ortons.
And then the last superstar, as terms to like the big four of the ruthless aggression era, it's the Animal Batista. Washington, D.C., 290 pounds, two-time WWE champion, four-time world heavyweight champion, three-time world tag team champion, twice with Ric Flair and once with John Cena, tag team champion with Rey Mysterio, and the winner of the 2005 and 2014 Royal Rumble, and originally supposed to be in the WWE Hall of Fame for 2020, but unfortunately the pandemic happened and he opted out because he'd rather have his induction in front of a huge crowd instead of what they did for 2020 and 2021, where it was like in the Thunderdome, which at some point maybe even will happen this year. Batista is expected to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the Animal Batista is awesome. I always love Batista. Sometimes at work, I do his little entrance sometimes and make people laugh at work. So, matches and feuds with Batista. I mean, I love when Batista was tagged with Rey Mysterio. I thought that that was such a great tag team. Other matches with Batista. Geez, why am I blanking on Batista matches? Okay, one that definitely I think should be talked about because it's such a weird match stipulation is Batista versus Khali in the Punjabi prison match. Just such a weird match. A lot of people hate it. I think it's kind of a neat idea, but watching that match, I don't know, definitely not the greatest. I'll just keep it like that because I don't know why I'm blanking so much on Batista because he's had a ton of great matches.
This match I could have mentioned with Orton, but I kept it for Batista to name a Batista match. Evolution versus the Rock and Sock Connection, 2-on-3 handicap match at WrestleMania 20. Something I'm surprised you didn't mention is Batista versus Triple H. That's a pretty big feud because that imploded Evolution. WrestleMania 21, where Batista won the World Heavyweight Champion for the first time. Although I wouldn't argue if anyone comments about Vengeance 2005 inside Hell in a Cell, because that was a very gruesome and bloody match. Undertaker versus Batista at WrestleMania 23 for the World Heavyweight Championship. A ton of matches actually that Batista's had with John Cena. So the one I put was SummerSlam 2008 because I believe like John Cena broke his neck or like got seriously injured in that match. Evolution versus The Shield, 6-man tag match. Nonetheless, Batista actually only has one Funko Pop in the lineup, and not gonna lie, this is a fucking travesty. This is such a disgrace for Batista. I think I know where they were going with it because he's holding the microphone, and I think they were basing it off the fact that it became so meme worthy when Batista came back to do the match with Triple H at WrestleMania 35, and he did that promo that wasn't supposed to happen. He forgot his lines by saying, "Give me what I want." And I think that's what they base it off of, but yet they used more of, yeah, like 2010 Batista, like younger Batista holding that World Heavyweight Championship would have been an amazing pop. I think it's something they probably could do. I'm sure they have a way of making Batista pops. I mean, if they have a way of making Brock pops, I'm sure they can make some Batista pops. But yeah, just that one Batista pop, just no. I was not a fan of when that pop came out.
Yeah, there needs to at least be one more Batista pop. I mean, a real ruthless aggression Batista pop, I think, is kind of needed for Batista. I mean, that's really where he shined. Of course, after 2010 upwards, I mean, he was, like you said, meme worthy, and a lot of people were really hating on him, like the whole Lutista thing, which would be kind of a neat Funko Pop to see.
All right, the next superstar we have here is Rey Mysterio, San Diego, California, 175-pound WWE champion, two-time world heavyweight champion, two-time intercontinental champion, three-time United States champion, three-time cruiserweight champion, and a four-time tag team champion with Edge, Rob Van Dam, Eddie Guerrero, and Batista, SmackDown tag team champion with Dominic Mysterio, winner of the 2006 Royal Rumble, and is a part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2023.
Rey Mysterio is amazing. His career has been so long. He's always been this kind of underdog type guy, but more recently he has been getting his flowers, especially with being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Rey Mysterio was definitely one of those like merch powerhouses in the 2000s, selling tons of masks, tons of shirts and everything. Like it was crazy how much Rey Mysterio merch you would see like in the crowd at events or just even at stores or whatever. But matches for Rey Mysterio, I think the first one that you kind of have to talk about, even though it's not technically WWE, but the WCW match with Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc. What an awesome match. I mean, that match was insane. One of my favorite Rey Mysterio attires of all time, right there in the purple. So cool. Of course, his Royal Rumble win, which was crazy. The underdog comes back to win the Rumble, especially at his size. He's not really one of those guys that should technically win the Rumble, but he did it. And then, of course, going after Kurt Angle's heavyweight championship, Randy Orton kind of gets himself tied into it as well. And then it becomes a triple threat at WrestleMania where Ray goes on to win the heavyweight championship, which is great storytelling. And it is just one of those feel good underdog moments. Recently, with Dominic Mysterio, the feud that they had, father and son. Ray versus Taker, a lot of the time was really cool as well. Taker was able to work well with Ray and vice versa. So that was cool to see. I guess that's really all I have to say about Rey Mysterio, but he's awesome.
So 3 of those matches you mentioned were on my list. So I'm going to have to think of some off the top of my head, which I don't mind, which one of them was the Halloween Havoc match. One that I wanted to mention also is Rey Mysterio's first pay-per-view match, which was against Kurt Angle at SummerSlam 2002, arguably the greatest SummerSlam opener, maybe even the greatest opening match in WWE history between them two. Speaking of Eddie Guerrero, though, I did list this one, is him versus Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania 21, which I believe that match also kicked off what would be WrestleMania 21. So that was a great opening match between two excellent superstars. The Andrade Cien Almas match from SmackDown 2019, there was actually a series of matches and they just killed it on every episode of SmackDown for like weeks in a row. Did write down the Dominic match as another like recent match, something in between, I guess, Ruthless Aggression and recent. We actually discussed about this, I believe, on our Attitude Era podcast. It was the match with Chris Jericho and Rey Mysterio where the mask was on the line, and when Jericho would pull off the mask, there was another one underneath, and I believe it was for the IC title, and it was the Bash 2009, I think it was. And when it comes to Funko Pops, there was a resurgence of Rey Mysterio Funko Pops in the last year or so, but there was the cool like OG blue attire from that first set with the scratch logo. There is the 7-Eleven exclusive Rey Mysterio that is one of the most expensive ones, especially also the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive where I believe it was like a black attire if I'm not mistaken. And then the more recent Rey Mysterio number 93 in the set, which also had a glow-in-the-dark specification version exclusive to Amazon. Ray is another person that could definitely use a lot of pops because he's had so many cool different attires, especially when he does those Marvel and DC inspired outfits for WrestleMania every year.
Yeah, there's definitely some really cool Ray pops, and the 7-Eleven exclusive is awesome. I love a weird exclusive like that, and because of the time that it came out, of course, we do have more 7-Eleven exclusives, but at the time, it was really one of the only 7-Eleven exclusives, so that was a really interesting one. And of course, Ray has changed his attire up. I mean, you get so used to those like baggy pants that he used to wear, but now he wears like the singlet and he has like the frill on his mask. So it's cool to see Funko Pops like that for Ray as well, and not just the iconic look, I guess you could say, of Rey Mysterio.
Next superstar we're going to be talking about, we just talked about him with Ray. It is Eddie Guerrero. El Paso, Texas, 220 pounds, former WWE champion, 2-time Intercontinental champion, 2-time European champion, United States champion, 4-time tag team champion, twice with Chavo Guerrero, once with Tajiri, and once with Rey Mysterio, the 11th Triple Crown champion, the 6th Grand Slam champion, and then a part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2006. Unfortunately, he wasn't around because he had passed away shortly before then, so that's kind of how the induction had happened so early for him. But regardless, he would have been in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Eddie was awesome. I remember specifically the Raw show where they told everyone that Eddie Guerrero had passed away and they come out, all the superstars, of course, on the entrance ramp. I remember watching that. I was actually at my grandparents' house, so me and my grandfather had watched that, and definitely a very emotional episode of Raw. I always think, like, what would he have done in the WWE if he wasn't to have passed away? Matches of Eddie Guerrero, of course, we just talked about that Halloween Havoc one, but another match that I really enjoy from Eddie Guerrero, I believe, if I'm not getting this mistaken, Eddie Guerrero versus John Cena, and it was like a parking lot brawl, I believe. That was a pretty cool match, and of course, that was the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena at the time as well. Eddie versus, was it Kurt Angle when he won the WWE Championship? Was it? It was Lesnar?
It was Brock. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Lesnar. Yeah. That, of course, you got to mention that was.
All right, so Eddie Guerrero, once again, like, all these superstars we're talking about today have had tremendous matches, and there's so many to talk about, but only so little to fit into this. But first one, in terms to WWE wise, a triple threat tag team match at Survivor Series 2002. It was him and Chavo as Los Guerreros against Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit against Edge and Rey Mysterio. They were actually dubbed as the SmackDown Six, is what it was called. These great up and coming superstars that were going to be like the face of SmackDown at some point for the SmackDown tag titles at the time. There's, of course, like you mentioned, against Brock Lesnar, and this was No Way Out. I also got to mention about Eddie versus JBL, the Great American Bash, because it created an amazing heel with JBL. And then, of course, I mean, you could also mention, I believe it was an episode of SmackDown had happened, or it was a Judgment Day, where Eddie just pours out blood from a chair shot. They would recreate that a year later with John Cena with JBL. But then something that I have to mention about, because I mentioned about Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania, I thought I would talk about this Eddie versus Rey at SummerSlam that year, and the winner would get the custody of Dominic Mysterio. And
I don't know how I didn't think about that, because that is one of the greatest storylines of all time. Come on.
But I thought I'd mention that, especially because that's one of his last matches, because it was 2005 that he did pass away. Funko Pop wise, there are, I believe, only two. Number 90 in the set, it's a GameStop exclusive Eddie Guerrero, and I believe it comes with a WrestleMania 20 pin, if I'm not mistaken. So it's that continuation of the pop and pin. And then the Pop Rides, what we all wanted with Eddie Guerrero with the lowrider, something I own in my collection. And it's just like, this is so awesome. And I'm glad that was the first WWE Pop Rides that they did.
Yeah, that Pop Rides is awesome. I also have it in my collection, and I actually got it for free. I got it in a trade, which was awesome. But besides the point, yeah, that is like the one that everyone wanted. I do feel like I could probably name a couple more that I think would be cool, like a 2-pack of him and Rey with their attires from Halloween Havoc, which would be really interesting to see. There's definitely room to see a few more Eddie Guerrero pops come out in the future.
All right, so this next superstar is someone we actually mentioned in advance that we couldn't mention about in the Attitude Era podcast, but we wanted to move it over to Ruthless Aggression. That is the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 220 pounds, 4-time WWE champion, world heavyweight champion, WCW champion. Of course, that's a part of the Invasion angle, and same with WCW United States champion, Intercontinental champion, European champion, hardcore champion, tag team champion with Chris Benoit, winner of the 2000 King of the Ring, the 5th Grand Slam champion, the 10th Triple Crown champion, and a WWE Hall of Famer in the class of 2017. And I will mention that the reason we put Kurt Angle, or at least that I decided to put Kurt Angle in Ruthless Aggression instead of Attitude Era when we did the podcast, is because Kurt Angle was able to finally break out and like show that he can be a top guy once the brand split happened, because of course being overshadowed by guys like Stone Cold, The Rock, and Triple H, he wasn't able to do that. But then becoming the face of SmackDown in the Ruthless Aggression era, in this case, he was able to show that he could be a top guy, whether it's a heel or a babyface. Kurt Angle, what a crazy athlete he was, especially Kurt Angle in TNA.
Yeah, Kurt is crazy, and kind of the story of Kurt Angle is pretty insane as well, of course. Breaking his neck and going on to still win Olympic gold is just insane. Kurt Angle also turned down his first ever WWE contract that was given to him and missed out basically on being in the WWE for a little bit. And then when he did finally come to WWE, I mean, within the first year of him being on WWE, he was main eventing with the likes of, like you said, The Rock and Stone Cold, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, when those two guys are arguably two of like the best to ever do it. Just the career that he's had, people a lot of the time say that he is the best technical wrestler of all time. And a lot of people definitely have Kurt Angle on their Mount Rushmore. And like you said, with his TNA run with Kurt Angle, yeah, insane. Some of his best matches definitely there. Matches wise for Kurt Angle, of course, there is Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon match. You got to talk about that one where Kurt Angle's trying to put Shane McMahon through that glass. He just won't go, and he's dropping him on his head. And then finally, he just ends up throwing him through the glass. Of course, there is that WrestleMania 22 match again with Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio. Besides that, I guess I'll let you take over with some of the matches for sure for Kurt Angle.
The earliest match I wrote was a triple threat match against The Rock and Triple H for the WWE title. There's a whole like love triangle storyline with him and Triple H involving Stephanie at the time. And this was the famous match where Triple H goes to do the pedigree on the announce table and it breaks before the pedigree happens and just knocks Kurt Angle out. He had a ton of matches with Chris Benoit, but the one that sticks out to a lot of people is the WWE title match at Royal Rumble 2003, which was just a clinic, something absolutely crazy. One of those matches where Kurt Angle always talks about wanting to bring up the legacy of Chris Benoit. Kurt Angle's went on to say that his best matches ever were with Chris Benoit. So he feels if Chris Benoit's removed from history, he's removed from history. Of course, you got to bring up the Brock match, even though the shooting star press was botched. That whole match was pretty awesome. A match that people always talk about is him versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21, that inter-promotional brand match, Raw versus SmackDown right there. Him versus Undertaker at No Way Out 2006. An amazing match. Like, that match was, they were actually trying to pitch that for WrestleMania 22, and that's where I wished it was only a singles match between Randy Orton and Rey, so that we could have gotten Kurt Angle versus Undertaker.
I actually thought of another match for Kurt Angle, which I'm surprised that you didn't say, and I'm surprised I didn't think of it when I was talking about matches, but John Cena's debut match versus Kurt Angle. That was a pretty decent match, and John Cena coming out really close to defeating Kurt Angle, but not getting it done.
In preparation, I only had one Funko Pop listed down, but a new Funko Pop got announced today as we were recording this podcast with Kurt Angle. So we get to talk about two technically. So number 55, it's a more current Kurt Angle, or more closer to the end of his run. But then I believe the newer one, number 146, is actually more Ruthless Aggression Kurt Angle. It looks more like it's Team Angle Kurt Angle attire. And I love the pose he's in. I like that Kurt Angle pop that they just released, or is up for pre-order right now as we're recording this, better than the OG Kurt Angle.
The original Kurt Angle Funko Pop I do own in my collection. That one's okay. I always thought there was something a little bit weird looking about that Kurt Angle pop, and then seeing this new one's pretty sweet. I do like the pose, and the attire is pretty cool there as well. There is just something about Funko Pop heads of Kurt Angle, because he's bald, that it just looks like nobody kind of to me. Like, you can't look at that head alone and be like, yep, that's Kurt Angle. No, that's just a bald head. And that's unfortunate, because Kurt Angle does have a pretty iconic look for like what his actual face looks like.
All right, so the next and last superstar we're going to be talking about, and MD kind of brought it up, and that is Eugene. No, I'm just kidding. It's the rated R superstar Edge. Toronto, Ontario, Canada, 241 pounds, 4-time WWE champion, 7-time world heavyweight champion, 5-time intercontinental champion, WCW United States champion, of course, Invasion Angle, 12-time world tag team champions, 7 times with Christian, twice with Chris Benoit, and then once with Hulk Hogan, Randy Orton, and Chris Jericho. And then a 2-time tag team champion with Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho. I believe the Chris Jericho one is because of the unified tag team champion. That's same with the world tag team champion. Winner of the 2001 King of the Ring, the first Money in the Bank ladder match in 2005, a 2-time Royal Rumble winner, once in 2010 and the other in 2021, the 14th Triple Crown champion, the 3rd Grand Slam champion, and a part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2012. I know you got a lot to say about Edge, so take it away.
Yeah, Edge. So like I said, Edge is my favorite WWE superstar of all time. Loved watching him growing up. Still do love watching him, of course. Adam Copeland now over in AEW. But Edge, yeah, just so many memories with Edge. I'll get right into some matches, of course. We did talk about that match with Cena in the TLC match where he ends up losing the WWE Championship to him, but also Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank and winning the WWE Championship was crazy. And then, of course, to follow that on the Monday Night Raw, the live sex celebration with Lita. I remember watching this at my old house as a kid, obviously, with my dad, and it was playing in the living room and it was playing in the bedroom where we were watching it. And I remember hearing my mom from the living room be like, "What the are you guys watching?" And that was crazy. That's a crazy memory that I have. But other matches for Edge, of course, tag team matches with Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudleys with some crazy spots. One of my favorite matches of all time at WrestleMania 22 in a no disqualification match versus Mick Foley, or maybe it was called like a hardcore match. I think that's what it was called, not no disqualification. But crazy spots there, of course, with the flaming table and Mick Foley hiding barbed wire under his jacket and just all these spots. And Edge's attire was so much different from anything he's ever worn in that match as well. Edge versus Undertaker at WrestleMania. I truly believed that Edge was going to beat the streak, which is silly to think about because there's no way that was happening. Also, some more recent matches with Edge. His final match in the WWE in Toronto versus Sheamus. What a match that was. That was really cool. Besides that, I don't know. I could go on forever about Edge matches because, like I said, my favorite superstar of all time.
All right, so matches that I have, of course, you mentioned about the Dudleys, Hardys, Edge and Christian. More specifically, I got to put WrestleMania 17. We brought this up in our Attitude Era podcast, I believe. That's where Edge does the spear to Jeff Hardy off the ladder. A match that I do enjoy watching was his match, and I didn't mention it with Kurt Angle. Their match at Backlash 2002 was just such a clinical classic between them. And then they would have a rematch, which people would remember because it's the match where Kurt Angle gets his head shaved bald. I also put down him and Orton at Vengeance 2004. That's where Edge wins the Intercontinental Champion and ending Randy Orton's huge long reign. Money in the Bank ladder match I put down. I knew you were going to mention about the Foley match, so I didn't bother putting that one down. Edge versus Undertaker. You mentioned about the WrestleMania one. I'm talking about the SummerSlam match where they're inside Hell in a Cell, and I believe Edge gets chokeslammed through the ring at one point off the ladder. Edge only has one Funko Pop, and it's a shame that we're probably not going to get any more because, of course, he is in AEW. The only time we probably will is the time that his contract runs out and maybe he does a Legends deal with WWE. I don't exactly know.
Yeah, it does really suck. Of course, I have the Edge Pop in my collection because I have to, of course. But there's so many like different Edge Pops that I would love to see. Like him and Christian could have a bunch of cool pops together of like the 5-second pose.
And before we discuss about pops we want to see next in the WWE lineup, we do have to give some honorable mentions considering there were some pops done as terms to Ruthless Aggression stars, but we couldn't really showcase with the time that we have. So first up is number 36 in the WWE lineup is Goldberg. Mentioning about Goldberg because it's terms to the actual WWE run, he made his debut in the Ruthless Aggression era where he was able to wrestle full time for a full year. This one really bugs me that we didn't have time to mention about. It's Trish Stratus. I mean, the women's division was on fire at that point. It was before the whole Divas era or like bring back, I can't remember what the whole movement was that led to like them not being called Divas anymore and all that. What we got today, that was kind of paving the way, Trish Stratus and Lita. So there's two Funko Pops of her. There's also number 117, which is Rob Van Dam, GameStop exclusive, comes with the Money in the Bank briefcase and the WrestleMania 22 pin. RVD did quite a bit with WWE in the Ruthless Aggression era. And then number 128 is King Booker. Yeah, Booker T, what a great superstar there. Don't know if you got any honorable mentions besides what you may have on your list.
Yeah, I think I'll save it for my list. I have a couple names that I could definitely mention, but we'll save it for the list. But yeah, definitely Booker T is one. Definitely a huge part of the Ruthless Aggression era and what he did, heavyweight champion, King of the Ring, all that. So yeah, no, I think that your honorable mentions were pretty good, especially with Trish Stratus being, of course, one of the best women's wrestlers of all time, honestly.
All right, so now we're going to be talking about Funko Pops we want to see next for the WWE lineup that is Ruthless Aggression related. And I wanted to start off with an honorable mention first because there was one superstar I wrote down on my list, and I'll mention it right now, the Hurricane. Hurricane was really awesome in Ruthless Aggression era, and it just so happens today as we were recording this, they announced a Hurricane Funko Pop for the WWE lineup that's going to be exclusive to Target. So that was really cool that they ended up doing that, considering I technically don't have to talk about it on the list now. But I guess realistically, I think the last time we did this, we went back and forth. So I guess I'll start off first. This first one, I don't think it's going to happen, but I said, screw it, I'm going to mention it anyways, because I love this part of the Ruthless Aggression era. Reverend Devon. I always love the gimmick of Reverend Devon, the singles run for Devon Dudley when they split the Dudleys during the brand split in 2002. Highly doubt they're ever going to do that unless they make a Deacon Batista pop.
So I think DK knows what my first one's going to be. And of course, that's Eugene. I mean, it's got to be Eugene. I loved Eugene so much. I thought he was a great character, of course. Nowadays, that's something that can't really be shown on TV because it's not really the nicest. But Eugene was awesome. You got to love him. So I would love to see a Funko Pop of Eugene. And I would like to see a chase for this pop as well. It could definitely be like the Super Eugene or whatever the hell he was called. But that's not actually what I went with. I went with something a little bit more simplistic that if there ever was a Eugene pop, it would be a potential to see. And that's just a green splatter chase on his jacket, of course, when DX ends up sliming him, I believe. And then the weeks later, he would always just come to the ring and his jacket was a total mess of this green splatter that he had got putting on him. So I think that that would be a very easy chase and actually doable for Funko.
Next pop I had put down is an in-ring moments, and it's of course Randy Orton versus Cactus Jack from Backlash 2004. I think this would be an awesome in-ring moments and would force me to buy it because I'm trying to get every Randy Orton Funko Pop that Funko has done. And what would be awesome is if they actually added thumbtacks in the middle of the ring because, of course, the RKO spot into the thumbtack. Yeah, that would be awesome.
So the next pop that I added, of course, we talked about the superstar only having one Funko Pop, Edge with the Rated R spinner belt. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever see this unless he ends up signing like a Legends contract at some point in the future. But I think it would be cool to see Edge with the Rated R spinner belt. And I'm thinking maybe blue trunks, but at the same time, it would be cool to see like just his black trunks with maybe like some of the red, like red boots or something like that.
Next one I had wrote down is a 2-pack, and it's of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. I think a lot of people have been wanting younger Brock Lesnar, and I think it'd be cool just to do it with a new Paul Heyman, considering that Paul Heyman was his manager at that time. He brought him into the WWE. I mean, they could do it singularly, and that's probably going to be the likely route. Maybe even do a pop and pin with like either SummerSlam or WrestleMania 19 for the pin. But nonetheless, a young Brock Lesnar and then doing a Paul Heyman, I just think it makes sense.
The next pop that I have on my list is a superstar that we never actually talked about in today's podcast, and that's Umaga. I think he was a pretty big part of the Ruthless Aggression era, coming in and being this absolute beast, taking down the likes of John Cena, which was kind of crazy at that time. So an Umaga pop, I think, would look really damn cool, of course, with the face paint that he has on, as well as his braided hair and just his stature, and of course, the thumb.
The next one that I have is a Evolution 4-pack, and I think it'd be awesome to kind of recreate that whole pose from Armageddon 2003 where all of them are holding championship gold. Randy Orton's got the Intercontinental title, Triple H has the World Heavyweight title, and Ric Flair and Batista have the World Tag Team titles. And I mean, in this day and age, it may even be one of those deluxe moments rather than a 4-pack because it is a moment. They just announced one actually of the opening toast from WrestleMania 30. So there could be a possibility where, I mean, moments like that for entrances could be the deluxe moments rather than just a 4-pack or multi-pack of sorts. But that would be a great way to add Ruthless Aggression Batista into this and Ruthless Aggression Randy Orton. And then, of course, lots of Ric Flairs and Triple H that they've done, just adding to that.
The next pop on my list is an Evolution 4-pack, but it'd be better than Dylan's because I said it. No, in all seriousness, I also wrote down an Evolution 4-pack. I mean, I feel like with the way Funko does 4-packs all the time, this is the one to do. I would love to see a Ric Flair hair slicked back. Yeah, an Evolution 4-pack would be awesome. And like DK said, with gold around all of them would be super, super cool.
And then the last pop I have on this list is none other than who I feel is the greatest general manager of all time, Eric Bischoff. I think it would be really awesome to have a pop of Eric Bischoff, and more specifically, I'd rather have him with his black hair. I know even in the Ruthless Aggression era, he did have gray hair at one point, then even had it kind of like buzzed with gray hair. But I'm thinking of when he first debuted and he had the black hair and you have him wearing the black outfit. I think it'd be really awesome, especially for Ruthless Aggression fans, to have an Eric Bischoff pop. Eric Bischoff's the man, and his theme song is a banger.
And the final pop on my list is another superstar who we did not talk about in today's podcast, and that is Carlito. I could actually see this being possible considering Carlito is signed with WWE again. And the pop that I would like to see would probably be the blue trunks. I would like to see that, but then I would also not mind seeing a chase version where you do get, like, let's say the purple trunks. I think that that's another one of those chases that would be very easy. And of course, you know, he has to be holding an apple in that Funko Pop.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this edition of a Funko Podcast. If you enjoyed this edition, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be back with another WWE podcast before WrestleMania. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you guys on another edition of a Funko Podcast. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Peace in, peace out.